to get closer towards Allah Almighty. And honestly, we as people, we don't know how to communicate with Allah Almighty, even though we are able to communicate. But what is the right methodology of communicating itself is a big question, right? How would you start your dua? What are the important things that need to be mentioned in the dua? How would you end your dua? What are the most important supplications you have to ask when you're asking Allah Almighty? Because when we are asking, we pretty much have some thoughts that has to do with our dunya. We have some limited thoughts that have to do with our family. Limited thoughts that has to do with some, little bit like a broader society. But the way Al-Muhammad ﷺ have taught us is that they have given us the supplications that are not worth 2 lines. They're not worth 10 lines. They're not worth 1 page. They are not worth 5 pages. Sometimes they're worth 15 to 20 pages. So that you have an extensive data of what are the important things that you need to ask Allah Almighty. But when you're asking Allah Almighty, you're trying to have that direct communication with Him, and also a very intimate conversation that you need to have with your Creator. And one of the dua that we all generally read at the time of Sahih, that dua is called what? Dua of Abu Hamza al-Thumani, right? So mashallah, we have a lot of duas, and almost a lot of them are being associated with the companion that has quoted that dua. So let's take the example of Dua Kumail. Is it actually Kumail making the supplication? Or is it actually Kumail asking Allah Almighty all the beautiful words that you see within it? Of course not. It is the dua of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and Amir al-Mu'mineen is quoting whom? Khidr alayhi salatu wassalam. So see, it's coming through the chain. It starts with Khidr. Khidr is supplicating. It goes to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Then from Amir al-Mu'mineen, it goes to Kumail. But since it's such a beautiful dua, it was supposed to be given a name, and it was given the name of dua of Kumail ibn Ziyad, dua Kumail as we say, right? Likewise, this beautiful dua is actually the dua that you were supposed to recite around the time of suhoor, just before the time of fajr. When you are done with your sahri and when you're done with your basic food, to be honest, right? MashaAllah, we have so many buffets and everything now, right? Even at the time of suhoor, right? So you had all of that, then you have the time before the fajr time would appear. Whatever time you have, you can invest that time reading this dua. I know it's a very long dua, and if you're supposed to read, if you're able to read without going through any audio, without going through any YouTube video or anything, or you're trying to read by yourself, the wordings are difficult. It takes us the time to get used to of those wordings, right? So it might just take more than an hour, to be honest. Sometimes we don't have enough time. Sometimes we might get lazy thinking it's going to be an hour. But if you divide that hour on 30 days, right? 30 days, 60 minutes, and you divide it by 30. Or you divide it by, let's suppose you're not reading it every day, or you're not doing suhoor every day. Divide it by 20, right? So still you have 3 minutes a day. If you invest that 3 minutes a day, right, that's going to be very beneficial, inshallah. So as we are reflecting about a personality, his name is what? Abu Hamza al-Thumali. His name is not Abu Hamza, his name is Thabat bin Dinar, right? But he was called as what? Abu Hamza, because he had 3 sons. One of the name was Hamza, one of them was Nuh, the third of them was Mansur. So 3 sons. In Arab, they used to call anyone with respect. If they want to give honor to anyone, they would not call him by his name, they would rather call him by their kunya. Kunya is when you are associated either with your son, with your daughter, and this is the way people will call you, right? So he was called as what? Abu Hamza. He was from where? From Kufa. It's very important because we're going through the dua and we don't know anything about the personality that has quoted that dua, right? So it's very important for us to reflect that. By the way, this dua for Abu Hamza Somali, inshallah, I'm going to quote some of the passages from it. This dua is quoted by Sheikh Tusi in his book Misbahul Mutahajjid. Misbahul Mutahajjid is one of the dua. That's just the way we have Mafatihul Jinan, just the way we have Zadul Ma'ad, just the way we have other duas book or the books of the supplications. We had in the early times a book by Sheikh Tusi which was called Misbahul Mutahajjid. He has quoted this beautiful dua. Now Abu Hamza was someone who used to live in Kufa. So any personality introduction, someone who has quoted this beautiful dua, we need to have a little bit introduction about that personality. And as we are quoting about that personality, it's not only about learning about him, it's also to take the lessons that we can extract from his life. So he was from Kufa. Kufa was a place that had a huge quantity, a large magnitude of Shias living in it, right? It has been a Shia place for majority of its time. Again, I'm using the word majority of the time. There were times that the Shias have to go back from Kufa. They went to different places. When Kufa was initially, it was made as a garrison city, there were not a lot of followers of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam in that city, right? But when Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib came in, it became a hotbed for Tashayyu. And then Ziyad came in, Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan, when he was the ruler, he executed, he mutilated, he killed so many Shias that at the end, when the time of Hussein ibn Ali came in, Sayyid al-Shuhada came in, practically there were only a handful of Shias living in Kufa. Then again, Imam Zain al-Abidin, the time of Imam Baqir, the time of Imam Sadiq, it went back to its normality of being a Shia place. So Abu Hamza was from Kufa, so it has the tendency of being a follower of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. Someone who had a very devoted love for Al-Muhammad. He was one of those that out of his 3 sons, all of his 3 sons were executed, were killed, while they were supporting the uprising of Zaid ibn Ali bin Hussein, Zaid al-Shahid. We all know Zaid al-Shahid a little bit, we might have heard about his name. In 122 Hijrah, he rose up against the tyrant of his time, Hisham bin Abdul Malik. And then ultimately, subsequently, he was being killed. But the people that were supporting him, a lot of them were the righteous followers of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. So of the 3 people who that Abu Hamza sacrificed, all 3 of his sons were martyred when they were supporting Zaid al-Shahid. Now Zaid al-Shahid was someone who wanted to bring peace and tranquility in the lands, and he was someone who was preaching and enjoining the righteous message and forbidding the people from the evil, right? That's a topic for another day. We come back to the topic of Abu Hamza. Abu Hamza, who has written a whole tafsir. Abu Hamza, who has written a book which is called Kitab al-Nawadir. Abu Hamza, who has also quoted a lot of reports from Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. He is someone who has even quoted Risalatul Huquq. Risalatul Huquq, the Treatise of Rights, a beautiful, beautiful book that you have, the booklet that you have. And I think one gift that you can give to anyone is the Risalatul Huquq. Very easy to understand. All those human rights and the things that we were talking about 1400 years before, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam have talked about it, right? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. We reflect back about who is the narrator, who is the one who's quoting it. Sheikh Suduq quotes it in his book Ma'ani al-Akhbar, and the person or the narrator who's narrating it is none other than Abu Hamza. Now Abu Hamza is one of that personality who used to be called as a faqih. Faqih means someone who is extremely knowledgeable in different Islamic sciences. He was one of those that Imam Rada alayhi salatu wasalam is quoted to have said in Kishi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Abu Hamzatu fi zamanihi ka Salmana fi zamanihi. The way Salman al-Farsi, the way Salman al-Muhammadi alayhi salatu wasalam was a follower of al-Muhammad in his time. If you can make a comparison during the time of Imam Zain al-Abidin, during the time of different Imams, it was Abu Hamza. And then he gives the reasoning why. وَكَانَ يَخْدِمُ الْأَرْبَعَةِ. He was the one that has served 4 of the Imams. Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, wa Imam Musa bin Ja'far. 4 of the Imams he has served. He was a student of all those 4 Imams. And a personality that you can learn a lot from him, but just coming right into the very important point that I wanted to mention is the beautiful dua. The very beautiful dua that gives you the gist of how you should communicate with Allah Almighty. We don't have the right words. We don't have the right way, as I have said. And we probably don't even know what to ask. If you ask me, like, write it down on the piece of the paper. Imagine you have not gone through any supplication. What would I ask? For a good car, for mortgage to be paid, for any pending debt to be paid. All of these things that has to do with dunya. Okay, let's go for the akhirah. Well, Allah save me from the hellfire, 1 dua. Let me enter into Jannah, 2nd dua. And make me a companion of Al-Muhammad, 3rd dua. That's it. Pretty much. Majority of the people would ask this. Maybe if they are kind enough, they'll ask for their extended family too. They'll ask for their brothers and sisters and mom and dad and everyone too. But that's it. I can guarantee you, if I can give you a piece of a paper and I want you to ask strictly spiritual du'as, not for your dunya. Most of us would fail the test and would not be able to write even one page properly, half a page properly, right? So how would we understand? How would we ask? This is the thing that Al-Muhammad alayhi salam have taught you. Very important message. How do you start your dua? إلهي لا تؤدبني بعقوبتك ولا تمكر لي في حيلتك. Oh Allah Almighty, do not discipline me if you want to discipline me by the means of your punishment, by the means of your retribution. Khudaya, we are not the best of the people. We have done a lot of mistakes. We have done so many transgressions. But when I want you to guide me, don't guide me by using a means of your punishment. وَلَا تَمْكُرْ لِي فِي حِيلَتِكَ. Do not make me a subject of your planned strategy. وَأَيْنَ لِيَ الْخَيْرِ يَا رَبِّ وَلَا يُوجَدُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِكَ. Where can I get the welfare, oh my Lord, oh my Creator, oh my Nourisher, my Rabb, where I cannot find it elsewhere beside you? If I want to get the khair of dunya and akhirah, the only source is my Creator that has created me. وَأَيْنَ لِيَ النَّجَاةِ. And where can I find the nijat, the ultimate success, oh my Lord? وَلَا تُسْتَطَاعُ إِلَّا بِكَ. Where I cannot attain it, but only through you, oh my Creator. لَا الَّذِي أَحْسَنَ إِسْتَغْنَى عَنْ عَوْنِكَ وَرَحْمَتِكَ. The person who might be very righteous, the person who is doing very good actions, even that person cannot dispense himself. Even that person cannot make himself sufficient, cannot evade the power, the strength, the rahmat of Allah Almighty and the help of Allah Almighty. Even that person is in need of the help and the blessing of Allah Almighty. وَلَا الَّذِي أَسَاءَ وَإِجْتَرَأَ عَلَيْكَ وَلَمْ يُرْضِكَ خَرَجَ عَنْ قُدْرَتِكَ. Even that person who has done wicked actions, even that person who challenged you, O my Lord, even that person that has not pleased you, my Creator, he would still be in the need of your help, my Lord. He would still cannot run away from your power, from your strength, my Creator. So I think this was a teaser, as they say. It's a very small passage that I quoted. For all of you to reflect upon, for all of you to understand that if there's one thing that I can do, the best of the thing that I can ask Allah Almighty is that Allah can save me and protect me from the hellfire, from the punishment on the Day of Judgment in this blessed month of Ramadan. That's a minimum requirement. The maximum requirements are those ranks and the columns that you should aim for. But the minimum requirement, at least for all the followers of Muhammad alayhi salam, should at least be فِكَاكَ الرَّقَبَةِ مِنَ النَّارِ. With this, inshallah, we ask Allah Almighty to inshallah protect us from the hellfire and make us as the companion of Muhammad alayhi salam. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطاهرين. أما بعد. Again, continuing from the point that we mentioned from Sermon 1, but trying to make a connection, trying to make a bridge in a different way. A very important thing that you're supposed to do in this month is to have that important connection with Quran, with the Book of Allah Almighty. وَهَذَا الشَّهْرُ رَمَضَانِ الَّذِي أَنزَلْتَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. The most important thing, there are so many important things, but one of the very important tasks that you need to have in your mind is to have the connection with the Book of Allah Almighty. Allah has given you that message. Allah has sent you the message of guidance. Allah has revealed so many proofs in the Holy Book. Allah wants us to be connected so that we can have the conversation with Allah Almighty. You want to talk, you make supplication. You want to listen, read the Book of Allah Almighty. The connection between the Creator and the created. It's a thing that you would have heard so many times, but again and again, reminder is very important. And one of the personality that we have discussed is Abu Hamza al-Thumali, of course, right? As I have mentioned it before, he has written a whole tafsir, which is called Tafsir of Abu Hamza. Sheikh Tabrasi has quoted some passages from it in Majma' al-Bayan. Sheikh Tabrasi was one of our early scholars. Likewise, Ibn Shahr al-Shub in his Al-Manaqib has quoted from Tafsir of Abu Hamza. Likewise, there is another scholar, the Sunni scholars too. The likes of Tha'labi in Al-Kashf al-Bayan, he has quoted from the Tafsir of Abu Hamza. So that gives you the importance. Let's start from the basic, from the recitation. Let's move to the next part, which is the translation. And let's move to another part, which is reading the tafsir of it. A very brief tafsir. And let's move to the next part, which is reading something which is mutawassit, something which is doable, but it is for the people of knowledge that wants to start reading the tafsir. And let's move to the best of the steps when we're reading the tafsir, which has the ocean of knowledge within it. But example that our predecessors, al-Salaf al-Salihin, the righteous Salaf al-Salihin has given to us is to have the connection with the Holy Book of Allah Almighty. And Abu Hamza has written a whole tafsir, as I have said. And Abu Hamza, while he has written that tafsir, he would quote an ayah. He would go through the linguistic meanings of the words of the Quran. The Quran sometimes will have difficult words, sometimes very easy, sometimes will have difficult words. So he'll go through each and every word linguistically. Not each and every word, but sometimes going through the interpretation of it. Then also he would quote Asbabun Nuzul, the reason for the revelation of the Quran. For some of the verses of the Quran. Why these verses were revealed. For what purpose were they revealed. Because if you have the context why they were revealed, it's easier for us to make the right understanding concerning the tafsir. The third thing that he would do, would use the ayats of the Quran to do the interpretation of the other ayats of the Quran. So tafsir of Quran by Quran. Likewise, he would also quote the hadith from Al-Muhammad alayhi salam concerning different tafsir and explanation of the ayats. Likewise, sometimes he will give his own personal opinion based upon the knowledge that he has. And the most important thing that he did was that he quoted different ayats, and different ayat that had the merits and the virtues of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam, he revealed and he quoted those virtues concerning different ayats of the Quran. So one ayat of the Quran that had what virtue of Al-Muhammad, he would quote, and you would be amazed to understand that you go through some of the books that our scholars have written that would have a lot of ayats of the Quran that would reveal in the merits and the virtues of Muhammad wa Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. And not only the Shia scholars, but also the Sunni scholars. There's a whole book that is written by Haskani, which is called Shawahid al-Tanzil. Shawahid al-Tanzil is basically upon some of the verses that are revealed in the honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen and in the honor of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. So important to have that connection, inshallah. With this, I ask Allah Almighty that, Ya Allah, make us one of those that would cling and that would always be strongly attached to the thaqlain, the two weighty things, both Quran and Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. And Ya Allah, make us among those that would have the closest proximity towards you, inshallah, by the end of the month, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad ibn Abdillahi khatim al-nabiyyin. Allahumma salli ala Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. اللهم صل على سيدتي نساء العالمين فاطمة الزهراء. اللهم صل على سيدي شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. اللهم صل وسلم على القائم المنتظر. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج.